Hi everyone. Today's video is going to cover a bit of my workflow for how I edit my photos. Specifically, our main topic is going to be showing how to use Lightroom Mobile to edit a picture I took recently. How you approach this may be completely different, and that's perfectly okay. I would love to hear more about your methods in the comments below. If you see anything I can improve on, I want to hear more about that too. I do apologize for the way my voice sounds. I'm getting over a little bit of a cold, but bear with me and we'll get started here. First, let me cover the three main ways I take pictures. Primary way number one is digital photography using my Canon 5D and various lenses. On my Canon, I typically shoot in RAW and have the picture mode set either to faithful or portrait, depending on the type of pictures I'm taking. If I take a picture that I deem to be a keeper, I use Lightroom to, at the very least, convert these pictures to JPEGs. I don't shoot in JPEG mode because I want to leave myself the most options later if I choose to use the features available to me in Lightroom, which we'll cover more in a moment. Method 2 is shooting on color film. If I shoot color film and receive lab scans, I usually just bring the photos into Lightroom to correct any geometry issues that might exist in my photo. The lab I use is the Reform Film Lab, and they do such an excellent job with their development and scanning process that very little is needed on my part once I get my scans back. Now, if I choose to self develop or scan photos myself, which I have experimented with, I edit the pictures in very much the same way in Lightroom, but I'll save that for another video. Method 3 is black and white film, much like when shooting color films, but this applies to both professional lab and self development. I usually just bring the pictures into Lightroom for geometry adjustments. Oh, and dust removal if the picture is good enough to warrant that. But let's dive deeper into my main method for shooting and editing my pictures, using my digital camera and editing in Lightroom. But here's the catch. I'm going to edit my picture in Lightroom Mobile. Obviously, some pictures I edit on the desktop version. The biggest shortfall I experience with the mobile version is its limitation when it comes to masking and healing tools, especially when I want the finer control that a mouse gives me compared to a touchscreen. But one advantage that the mobile app has over its desktop counterpart is that it provides users who may just be getting into photography and editing with a usually great color screen that is reliable and consistent. Because, as most of you watching this know, the majority of our photos will be viewed on a mobile device. So why not edit there too? The color on iPhone screens and many Android screens is very accurate and very true to life on how they'll be viewed by the majority of people that enjoy our photos. And sometimes that's just us, and that's okay too. So let's dive in and get started. This picture I'm going to look at was taken near the riverfront here in Evansville, Indiana. That's our new city flag hanging out in the background. This photo was shot in RAW, and I used an ND filter. While it was a bright day, there was a lot of thin cloud cover that brought more gray into the image than I would have liked. But wait, you're wondering, how did I get this image on my phone off my 5D Classic? That camera doesn't have Wi Fi or the ability to sync photos over to my other devices. If that's what you were thinking, then you'd be correct. To solve this problem, I went over to Amazon and found a multi card reader to USB Type C dongle. From there, I just pop my CF card into the appropriate slot, plug in into my iPhone 15, then head to my photo app, and from there, the CF card is recognized and I can choose what pictures to import. It even gives you the ability to keep or delete your photos once they're imported. I would suggest telling your iPhone you want to keep the photos. I've tried deleting them in the past, and that has kind of left me with extra data on the card that formatting the card on the camera gave better results for. That's just something to keep in mind as you if you choose to use this method. Now, once I import the pictures, I can get a closer look at them, and then I multi-select the good ones. Yeah, who am I kidding? I typically just pick the one or two that are worth editing. Select the Share button and open them in Lightroom. If you are moving over a larger quantity of pictures, your phone will ask you if you want to open Lightroom now or just have it import these photos and have them available the next time you open Lightroom. Just something to keep in mind. Now, once in Lightroom, that's where the magic happens. The picture I selected here is dull and has no pop. Also, either my eyesight sucks, which it does, probably my personal equilibrium is so far off that when taking this picture, I felt like it was straight. So let's make my first edit. Geometry. The first thing I try is auto geometry. That's accessed here in the toolbar with a little framing box and arrow icon. Now, I've found this method usually results an excess white space that is created to maintain the aspect ratio creeping back into your pictures. Should you do any manual rotation edits, which I often find myself doing? One reason for this is that I typically try to find the lines or the elements of the photo that my eye is drawn to and try to level my picture that way. Sometimes it's a horizon line, other times it may be a prominent vertical aspect of the picture. In this case, the flagpoles. I would personally rather have them level over the other elements. Another approach to leveling pictures is available too, depending on the version you have installed. Selecting the wand icon in the far left of the toolbar may present you with a fixed angle option. This may or may not be available to you as the options listed changed based on the AI detection available and analyzed by the picture and the app. I find this fixed angle to mostly correct the leveling and geometry with one added twist. It also flattens the picture. Basically, it wants to try and make all four corners look even. It does this to some varying degree of success. For this photo, I'm going to simply use auto geometry to level out the picture. I'm also going to crop it some while I'm in here. I want to get the flags themselves to appear a little more prominent as they are the subject and everything else is currently at risk of taking the spotlight. When cropping in Lightroom Mobile, make sure that once you're ready to adjust the position of your crop, you select inside the crop box. That's what you're trying to move, not the picture underneath it. Trust me, I've tried moving it from the orientation of the picture, and that just results in angle adjustments and frustration. Now, we need to work on making this photo less bland. My first stop is going to go to the adjustment lever icon from the toolbar. Then I go to the light tab. First, let's talk about why we are skipping the auto option. If I just need to quickly get a feel for the picture and to see if it's worth keeping or not, I may hit this to see what Lightroom suggests making this picture look like, and sometimes it improves it somewhat. But in the case of this picture, I don't feel like Lightroom wants to go far enough. Like I said, this picture started out rough. The saving grace was that the wind allowed the flags to fly flat, giving them all some decent visibility and identity. Now back to the edits. Let's start at the light tab. The first and easiest edit to make is here in the exposure. The ND filter is great, but at these settings, we just cut out too much of the light. So we are going to bring our exposure up, and we're going to go by a setting of 1.41. Now, we move on to contrast. But what is contrast? Well, just like contrast in a conversation is the difference between two topics, contrast in photography is the difference between the light and dark areas of our picture. More contrast, and that difference is more apparent, and less results in the highlights and shadows appearing more even. There's a time and place for more or less, but in this photo's case, we want more, and we're going to increase it up by 38. Moving right down the list. Next, we have our highlight slider. Adjusting this up would brighten the brightest areas of our photo. This would add more contrast, which we previously already did, but it would add more contrast while leaving our darker areas alone. Decreasing this value allows us to recover the detail in those brighter areas. The reason why I want to decrease this value here is that overall, and despite the initial underexposure, the picture is of a very bright scene. And I personally want to get some more of that detail out, so I'm going to lower my highlights here to minus 60. Continuing on, next is our shadow slider. This slider works like our highlight adjustment, except in this case, instead of working on those brighter areas, this focuses in on the darker areas of the picture. Increasing this brings detail out of the darker areas, and decreasing adds additional contrast of depth to those darker areas while leaving the brighter areas alone. Now, that being said, it shouldn't touch our true black areas of the photo. Your mileage on this may vary depending on the picture you're editing. For my photo, I'm going to increase my shadows to plus 70. Moving right along to the next two sliders. One adjusts the whites, which impacts the brightest areas of your picture. We are going to increase this to plus 12. The next one adjusts the blacks, which control the darkest area of your picture. And for this, we're going to adjust to plus 63. At this point, you're probably thinking, wow, you've taken a poorly composed picture that started out hazy and dark, and now you've turned it into a leveled out, overexposed mess. That still doesn't look great. Well, the light adjustment is really only a piece of the puzzle. Let's move on to color. And guess what? When we're done, you won't notice much of a change here either just yet, but it's all an important part of the process. The first setting we have is our white balance. The default is as shot, meaning that it retains the white balance settings you had enabled on your camera when you took the picture. In my case, the 5D was set to auto white balance at the time of this shot. I do adjust under certain circumstances, such as when it's using flash, but for this photo, I just let the camera make the decisions for me. Adjusting the white balance here adjusts the color settings. Since the photo was shot on a cloudy day, I'm going to change the white balance to cloudy, and we can see here that it changes the temperature and tint settings. For temp, we'll leave it at the preset 6500, tint left at +10. Vibrance is our next slider we get to work with. This allows us to boost the less saturated colors and their intensity without overdoing it. For vibrance, an adjustment of +35 looks like it brought out more of the green in this picture, and that's exactly what I'm trying to achieve at this stage. Up next is the saturation slider. Unlike the vibrance slider that uses some behind the scenes magic to determine which colors to influence, this setting adjusts all colors evenly. We're going to try a saturation of +26. At this point, I feel like I've enhanced all the colors of everything but the sky, and that was the goal so far. Now, here's where some of the real changes will be felt and noticed. The effects category of adjustments. I'll go through these pretty quickly, since with only two exceptions, they are pretty straightforward. For texture, I'll go up to +48. Clarity, let's try +35. I really like how that added some depth to our ground level area. Dehaze, we'll move it up to +52. This is starting to give some of the blue back to the sky and get us closer to where we want to be. We'll leave both vignette and grain at their default 0. Vignette adjusts the lighting in the corners of our image. Considering this is an outdoor picture shot on a bright day, we really don't want that for this particular image. Next one we'll leave alone is grain. Sometimes when I'm adjusting a shot that looks better in black and white, I'll up the grain to give it more film-like aesthetic. But that's not what I'm going for here. I should take a moment to talk about what I am going for. If I had to describe it, I would say painting. I want this to look like a painting if you were to squint your eyes. And with the tools available in Lightroom, we can get most of the way there. In the details category, we have one option, and that's sharpening. We'll move that up to 85. This will bring some of the detail in the flags and the tree branches out. Last adjustment we'll make here is to the sky. It's just not blue enough. Honestly, the picture as it looks right now is as close to real life as I saw it on the day I took the picture. But I want a blue sky, and I don't pay for this monthly subscription to Adobe for nothing. So let's fix it. So we'll go to Mask, then select the plus icon to add a mask, and we'll select Sky. You have other options, and depending on the type of picture you're editing and the style you're going for, you may make a different choice. Once we have the sky mask selected, we have the same editing options to work with that we had previously. Only now, these settings just impact the masked area. I won't go through them all again, but we're going to touch two sliders. First, the exposure. Let's go ahead and drop that. We'll go down to -1.12. After that, let's bring some blue into our sky. To accomplish this, I'm going to go into the color category and bring the temp down. Yeah, let's try -36, and that looks really good. Now, we have more of the look I was going for, but now I have another issue with my camera, and it's abundantly clear. I have a dust issue on my sensor. You see these dark specks here? Yep, that's dust. Fortunately, Lightroom has a fix for this. I will say that when using the mobile version, I find that it's helpful to zoom in on the area you want to repair before opening the healing tool. And if you turn off the information feature, that doesn't hurt either. Here, we'll open the heal tool and adjust our selector and just go to town on these blemishes. Okay, now that those adjustments are made, I can finally say I feel happy with my picture. Sure, I could go into more detail and remove the oil drips in the parking spot, or the skid mark left a few spaces down, but I feel like that adds authenticity to this photo. Again, these edits may be a touch too far for many of you, and if that's the case, I completely respect your opinion. The whole purpose of this video was to give a little bit of a walkthrough on the use of Lightroom Mobile, and highlight it as a workable solution for editing photos on the go. But wait, we're not done yet. The next thing I'll do once I get an edit I like is that I'll save all the settings as a preset. Maybe I'll want to use it again in the future, and even if the next picture I edit requires some tweaks, at least it will give me a good baseline for when that time comes. And lastly, when we get an edit we like, we're probably going to want to export it so that it can be shared. And to do this, we'll click on the share box here and select the settings we want and for the ways in which we intend to use the picture. Anyway, that'll wrap it up for this one. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch my video, and if you wouldn't mind giving me a like and subscribe, that would help a ton to grow this channel. I anticipate continuing to put out content, and if there's anything you'd like to see, just leave a comment below. I hope you have a great day and can get out and take some amazing pictures.